So today we have another BBOOC build, but this one is a little bit different. We've brought our friends along for the ride. That's right, this is a dually build centered around the Friends archetype, which has got to be one of my favorite archetypes in the entire game so far. The specific item that we are sort of testing and the sort of challenge item that the community had to build around was Amplifier, one of the new items brought into the Bazaar. She's a little bit tricky to build around, not necessarily the strongest of items, but let's see if they were able to make it work. So here we have a dually build constructed around a number of new items, actually. The main one, I would argue, the main new item would be Amplifier, but the multitude of new items are Remote Control, Amplifier, and Power Drill, all rolled into this one build. The build itself being the core, Chris Army Knife, Remote Control, Tommy Ann and Doe, Amplifier, and Power Drill. So, typically I will start these off by going through the new item that it is, but because there are so many new items and because they all sort of mesh together, with this build I think I'm actually just going to go left to right, and you're going to have to wait a little bit to see the new items. So let's start with the one item that everyone should know if you are a fan of dually, and if you are not yet a fan of dually, then we have videos talking about this very item. And that is the core. This is the one item that dually always has. He cannot sell, cannot get rid of. He starts the game with it. This is dually's mechanic. The core is a medium core weapon that every 12 seconds deals 7 damage and advances all items to its right by 1 second. And then when any item to its left is used, advance the core by 1 second. You won't have to worry about that next bit, the passive, because of that last bit. Because there are no items to the left of it, everything is to the right of the core. So the core in this instance, and I feel like this is going to be the way that a lot of specific sort of archetypal builds, archetypal builds, will be doing this, is having most of the items to the right, if not all, and just using the core to advance them. So, the first item next to it is the Chris Army Knife. Every 5 seconds, this small friend weapon, he's a small friend, deals damage equal to your core level. Because this is a Bazaar build out of context, we do not have higher levels of core. So, Chris Army Knife, he's there as a small friend. He's going to be doing an amount of damage. We don't even know what core levels they are at the moment. We don't know if it's core level 5 and then core 10, or if you do go core 1, 2, 3, 4, in which case Chris Army Knife is maybe not the best. But if the core goes 5, 10, 15, 20, Chris Army Knife, very good item. So that one is entirely up to debate at the moment. I would argue that because he is a small friend and weapon, 2 different keywords, and he triggers every 5 seconds, which is one of the quickest timings that dually has, it's a pretty good item to throw into many builds, but we'll see. Next to him, we have the Remote Control. This is one of the new items. Every 8 seconds, this small item applies 2 seconds of advance to the core. It's passive when you use an adjacent friend, advance this by 1 second. So Chris Army Knife is here to speed up the Remote Control, which is there to speed up the core, which is there to speed up Chris Army Knife and the Remote Control and everything else. That little trio, core, Chris Army Knife, Remote Control, is a really nice little build to have going. Because they all sort of speed each other up. So this build in general, I would say, if it's an item with 8 seconds or more of cooldown, is probably 1 or 2 seconds shorter than what it appears to be. Maybe not 1 or 2. We'll get there. Next up is Tommy Ann and Doe. I don't know if this is the first time of them appearing on the channel, but they are an older item, but a favourite item of mine, as all friends are. This 11-second medium friend weapon deals 22 damage. Its passive is that adjacent friends charge 10% faster. So, Remote Control is adjacent, but isn't a friend, which is unfortunate, but hey, that's just the way things go. It is getting buffed by Remote Control, so here we had to make a decision, right? And I'll go over the rest of it in a second. But while Remote Control is fresh in our memory, Remote Control, when you use an adjacent friend, apply 1 second advance to this item. So, Tommy Ann and Doe and Chris Army Knife are both friends, and they are both applying advance to remote control. If you swap Chris Army Knife and remote control around, then remote control is getting fewer buffs. However, Chris Army Knife is getting the buff from Komi and Do. So if Chris Army Knife ends up being a better item than remote control, I would swap them. But for now, I think this is the right decision. So yeah, Komi and Do, what it's actually giving us is 22 damage for 11 seconds. That's 2 damage per second. It's okay. It's not terrible. But of course, we have the core, we have remote control, which is buffed by Komi and Do and Chris Army Knife. So it is less than 11 seconds. This is going to be more like 9 to 10 seconds. And of course, we have it for its passive. Adjacent friends charge 10% faster. This is effectively having 10 speed when you would all, like, from the base. It's like your first 10 speed, and every speed you get has diminishing returns on it. So your first 10 speed is effectively what this is. I would be interested in when these percentages apply. Do these percentages apply after speed? In which case, ding, 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 good. If they apply before speed, that's bad. Or at least it doesn't stack. So you should get no speed and just have this. Whereas if they apply on top of speed, you should probably get, I don't know, about 50 speed, and then you're charging the whole thing 10% faster. So yeah, it really matters as to when that gets applied, but 10% could be a significant amount. The other friend, of course, that Komi and Do is buffing, and the main one, I think, that it is buffing, is Amplifier. Obviously, Amplifier. This medium friend, every 8 seconds, gives you 12 health, plus 12 more if you own another friend. We have plenty, so 24 health. The left friend charges 12% faster. 12%? Better than 10%? I love Komi and Do and Amplifier, like, next to each other. It is Komi and Do and Amplifier. I don't think they're the same An, based on the way that the little droid balls look in Komi and Do and the DJ looks in Amplifier. People can have the same name, that's fine. I've met other people called Greg. But it's a little odd. They also have very, very similar abilities. I wonder if that's been done on purpose? I don't know. Anyway, Amplifier, our little DJ robot, is going to be speeding up Komi and Do, giving them a shorter cooldown for every time they're applying their 22 damage. At the moment, that's kind of where our damage comes from as well. Like, Chris Army Knife is going to be doing damage, sure. And I've been calculating and figuring out what all of these items are doing and how they work and mesh together. But the critical question is, how do we win a game of the Bazaar with this build? At the moment, Chris Army Knife, if it's a decent item, if you can upgrade your core, but really, Komi and Do is our only damage. So speeding it up by 12% is exceptional for this build. Komi and Do is going to be charging, I don't know, 7-8 seconds-ish, if you're lucky, if you've got a little bit of speed mix in there as well. So that's a darn sight better than it was. It's a step in the right direction, but for 22 damage, that works out at almost sort of average DPS for something like Cookies, which was just a small item without buffs in a previous build. That was Amplifier. Our final item is the Power Drill, another new item. This medium weapon every 6 seconds deals 8 damage, and then this gets 8 damage. This item is also potentially going to carry some of the damage. It is very occasionally, like once every other activation, going to be 5 seconds because of the core, decreasing its charge speed. It is a little bit of a shame that there is nothing in this build to make Power Drill charge faster. I do like how the friends interact with each other though. So I guess that's kind of what we need to talk about, right? Power Drill, it deals 8 damage, and then the next time it deals 16 damage, and then it deals 24 damage, so on and so forth to get stronger. Power Drill, I think, is doing a lot of the heavy lifting in this build, and this is not a build based around Power Drill. Power Drill could be swapped out for any medium item, right? The point of the build, the core, if you will forgive the pun, of this build, are the friends that we've made along the way, but specifically the friends that we've collected. Chris, Komi, and Do, and Anne. Because that's not a confusing group of friends at all. Do I think this is a strong build? No. Am I partial and biased towards the friends archetype? Definitely. Do I think Swampsy, who came up with this build, is also a little bit too partial to friends? Probably. Am I going to give this a strong rating? Definitely not. Let's go with... So, before I don't go into my Bazaar rating, getting ahead of myself, let's talk about the important facts. How can we build this up? This actually has a relatively nice, easy build-up because we are mostly using friends, and they are mostly buffing friends in general. So as long as we pick up a friend, they work nicely together. There probably will be a friend merchant, or at least some sort of droid or robot merchant that we can go to pick up more friends. Ideal. There are, however, a couple of core items that we need to find. Remote control, I would say, is one of them. Remote control, Chris Army Knife, and the core, that little 3-part, that is one thing that is absolutely holding this build up to make it remotely competent. So you do need to find that. Chris Army Knife shouldn't be difficult. He should be available fairly early on. You should have plenty of opportunity to find him. Remote control at 8 gold is going to be coming in a little bit later into the game, probably. Again, pinch of salt everything here. So it's going to be a little bit harder to find, but I don't doubt that by the end of the game you should be able to find a remote control. So that is a point in its favour. Super easy to build around. The only item you desperately need to find, I feel like you have plenty of time to find. Points against it are basically how strong it is. This thing, compared to other builds that we've done on the Bazaar Build Out of Context Challenge, doesn't really hold up. It has very little damage, and on top of that, the only defensive capabilities it has are with Amplifier and having that 24 health every 8 seconds. It's more like 7 or 6 seconds, but still, 24 health every 6 seconds. That's about as much damage as Komian and Do are doing, and they're slightly behind the curve. So this really isn't going to hold up in a late game fight in this particular way. Now, I don't doubt that because the way that Dooley is built, because of the core and the way that the core can upgrade, that hero stats are going to be particularly important for Dooley. If you add a splash of speed into this, or if you add a hero power that buffs the core into this, or buffs friends or something, maybe this build gets elevated. But currently, as this stands, this build is just slightly behind the curve. Now, you might say, well, okay, behind the curve, that's got to be a bad build. However, I told you, I'm biased towards friends in this game. So I'm going to use logic to tell you why this has to be a 3 out of 5 and not a 1 or a 2. This build is slightly behind the curve. I have given 4 out of 5s to basically every other build that we've done here. What more explanation do you need? It's slightly behind the curve, so I'm going to dock it 1 point from everything else I've done on this channel so far. This is a 3 out of 5 build, technically. I will not play it myself, but I will admire anyone that tried. So, if you enjoyed this build, or you think you can do better, maybe, then you definitely need to be up to speed on the Dooley items. We did an entire Dooley build not too long ago, so I would definitely go and check that out. It used a neutral item as well, so it was a little bit more of a trickier build. Swampsy definitely redeemed himself in this one. So go ahead and give that a watch to see what Dooley can do with a different set of items.